Thank you for listening to the Kyle and Tim podcast, where we have authentic conversations that help cultivate a better understanding of ourselves, our guests, and the world we live in. This podcast is about our guests, getting to know them, their backgrounds, experiences, thoughts, and ideas. We really appreciate you listening. Before we introduce our next guest, we'd like to introduce a few of our sponsors that help make this podcast possible.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Mountain Mule Transportation, located here in Bozeman, Montana. Mountain Mule is a private SUV and truck service, offering chauffeur services in all of southwest Montana. Whether it's your next skiing, hunting, or fishing trip, early morning or late night trips to and from Bozeman Airport, as well as weddings and private parties. No matter the occasion, Mountain Mule will get you there safely and on time. To learn more, visit mountain-mule.com and book today. Welcome to the Kyle and Tim podcast. Today's guest is me, Tim Baldwin. We talked about what I learned in the last year of podcasting. We talked about why you should be our next guest. And we talked about the ways you can contact us to be our next guest. As far as that, Kyle, what else did we talk about?
I think that's really about it. I think we just summarized, the impacts, positive impacts that the podcast has had on you and the community, and how the podcast has opened up opportunities not only for you as an individual, but for others. And that's really about it.
Enjoy, folks. Find us on Instagram. Let us know when you want to come on.
Thanks a lot. Hope you enjoyed. Tim, how you doing?
Kyle, I'm doing great.
Good. You looking forward to 2025?
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm excited.
What are you excited about?
I'm excited about my company.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about my life in general, my friends, my family, everyone that's around me, the people I've been meeting.
When's the last time you were this excited about that stuff?
This is probably the most excited I've been in my entire life to date.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that obviously comes and goes. I'm not just I'm walking around ball of ecstasy every day, but I've said to myself, wow, things are just starting to get good.
Uh-huh.
Meaning I don't know, that meaning that just life is getting exciting. I'm, doing the work I need to do and working hard at it. And I'm starting to see some payoffs, and that's fun. A lot of trial and error.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
What do you think what do you think is making that all work together?
The culmination of everything I've done in my life, and then some more specific things recently in the last year, this podcast being one of them, and just taking chances on myself.
Mm-hmm. What chances are you taking on yourself?
Exposing myself, just being vulnerable and releasing these podcasts and working very hard to market my business and tell people about it and ask what I'm not doing right and work better at it. And ABC.
Mm-hmm.
ABC. Yeah.
Cool. So we've been doing the podcast for a year now. What are some of your what are your some of your takeaways that come to mind of what have you enjoyed about doing this podcast?
Just talking to people, getting to know people better, getting to know myself better.
How are you getting to know yourself better?
Because I'm taking the chance to talk to people and to record it and to publish it. And I'm realizing I like doing it a lot more than I would normally have said I do.
What have you learned about yourself?
That I enjoy talking to people. That it's probably the most fun, it's the most exciting thing I could do is meet people, talk to people, network with people, as you said. yeah, just get to know people. Everyone's got a cool story and something cool to share. And I don't know, it's for some reason it sounds so dumb. And I'd almost cringe. Get out of here, man. This is my
You
fidget.
can't have that,
This
bro.
is my fidget. This is my fidgeter. I would have almost cringed. Like,
You're gonna want to put that down, by the way,
why?
because you know you're not gonna like that. That it was the entire time you were fiddling with it.
I don't mind it. I don't think it's. I don't know.
Okay, all right.
I would have if I had heard myself say that as much as 2 or 3 years ago. I probably would have cringed in some sense.
What
But
changed?
just I got more comfortable and more confidence talking to people and getting to know people
How did that happen?
through talking to people.
Just doing more of it.
Yeah, repetition.
Yeah. You were so quiet 5 years ago, 4 years ago,
Yeah, and it was
4 years ago.
but it was funny because that was when I had started in the industry that I'm in, which ultimately started Uber driving.
Mm-hmm.
But that was when I realized that it actually is fun, interesting getting to know people.
Mm-hmm.
So many people would say to me, "How do you do that, man?" Because I was a carpenter,
Mm-hmm.
40 hours a week, and then they were saying, "How the hell do you do that? How do you have the patience for that?" And I
Patience for what?
dealing with people,
Talking,
yeah,
driving.
yeah, I found it to be interesting. I didn't meet a lot of people being homeschooled on a dairy farm, so turns out they have something to say, and some of it's interesting, some of it's idiotic, but it's all, I don't know.
Yeah, I remember when you first started it, you would all the time you would say, "Oh, dude, I met this really interesting person," and you would talk with them for 2 hours because they were in the car for 2 hours, and you meet some super interesting people. Taking them up to the club and or on vacation or whatever. And I remember when you first were like, "Oh, dude, I picked up these people in a private jet," and that's a whole different world, right? Like it's not a world that you come from. And so then you would talk to people like, "Hey, like, what do you do?" Wow, you landed in a private jet, and so you'd meet people from all walks of life, and I remember how interesting you thought that was.
Yeah, in a weird way, this is an expansion of that,
Mm-hmm.
or an evolution of that.
Yeah.
Because even when I started doing that, people from my hometown, maybe even some of my family members, have thought, out of all the people, I'm the last one you would have thought would have done that, and probably this.
Mm-hmm. Because you were uncomfortable.
Yeah, so I mean, you just have a front to that. You don't talk to people because that's not what you do, and you're just a bad dude, and you don't need to talk to people.
You just keep to yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah. You're not a bad dude. You just relax.
you know.
Man.
Yeah, you know what
Yeah,
I mean.
I know what you mean. Um,
And I meant like badass, not bad.
I know what you meant. Um, okay. So I asked you, what have you learned about yourself? And you said that you liked talking to people. And that was a surprise to you. Kind of kind of a surprise. What else have you learned about yourself?
That I can, I don't know, that I have something to offer to people in the sense of my personality, of just showing up as me and meeting them at the level of being a human and saying, "Hey man, who are you? What do you do? What's going on? What have you done? I want to hear about it." And I don't know, that's something to offer people that I don't know if people don't think about it or people might not think that they have, but it's probably like something that's of
What do you think you're offering them?
um a connection.
Mm-hmm.
Connection of listening to them, understanding them, and then just giving them kind of space to say, yeah, man, this is what it's like. This is what's up. And this is what it's felt like to be me for, 20 or 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm like learning that I have something to offer people that's actually valuable, like more valuable than an experience they could buy.
Yeah, I mean, when you say that, what comes to mind is like there's so many people that could relate to your background that they're unheard. There is no story about them. They don't, um, could be a dairy farmer, could be somebody who's homeschooled, could be a carpenter, and people who are just, they're unseen, right? They're unseen in the world, especially unseen in today's world. And so, yeah, I think you do have something to offer them, in that, like, you're just a quiet guy and you're never going to be heard, unless somebody gives you an opportunity. And you don't want to stand out. That's not your personality, um, which is so interesting nowadays because it seems like there's so many people that want to stand out. But I think there's a whole like segment of society that they don't want to stand out. They just want to kind of live in the background, which is fine, and they just want to live a good life and make the most of it.
Yeah, I think if people don't want to stand out, they still want to be heard.
Right. Yeah, I would agree.
They might not want any notoriety or attention for it, but they still want to, because we all have a story in our head. So we still live out that story and replay that story. And for someone to hear that and just say, yeah, I hear you, I get it. And hey, maybe here's how I completely get it. Listen to this. I'm like, oh yeah, I know what that was like. Tell me more about that. And that, not only do I have that to offer just as a person to anyone, but we also now have this to offer to people as an actual place where they can come sit and talk to us, and then they can essentially share it with anyone they want, which I think is just cool.
Yeah, I think it's funny. We just had two, in the last month we've had two cattle ranchers on, and they're such different people in so many ways in of themselves, but yet they have a lot of similarities, in some ways. And Dempsey, born and raised, no, not born, but raised in Bozeman, which Dusty would have been like, oh, what a big city Bozeman is, right?
Yeah.
And then, and Dempsey's like, grew up here, and then if you think like, is Bozeman a big city? It's not, but it is to Dusty. Interesting. Like those two guys, I think, are an example of, you give a voice to somebody who most people don't know anything about. They don't know about cattle ranching in Montana. So yeah, I think you do have a lot to offer people, and it's interesting, right? Because you're offering them something, they're offering you something, and then this is offering something for you. Like the podcast is offering you an opportunity to do things that it's there. You just got to do it.
Yeah. I think in turn offered an opportunity to meet with and speak with all kinds of people from all over the world.
Mm-hmm. What stands out about doing the podcast in 2024 for you? Like what highlights, lowlights, just, doing it in general, like what comes to mind?
Excuse me. That, I don't know. That's sort of a broad question, so I'll think of how to answer that. As far as specific episodes, as far as myself, what do you?
Whatever comes to mind. Just splurt it out. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think as far as myself, just the past year, which I've now noticed it in all other aspects of my life, is my comfort talking with people. being just essentially, I'll feel generally comfortable walking up to anyone or into anywhere situation and just saying, introducing myself, starting a conversation just seems very, very normal. Like doesn't,
And
I
that's
mean,
happened in the last year.
yeah, I think it's slowly been happening over the years, but I just like the way I think it in my head is like, you have to sometimes wait for reality to catch up to where you've gone to, like
Mm-hmm.
mentally, emotionally, or spiritually.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So
No, what do you mean by that? You have to wait for reality to catch up to you.
because I think slowly over the years I've gotten more and more comfortable,
Mm.
and then like the circumstances aren't just going to change like that, but they're like things are catching up. I just don't think like observable or physical reality catches up as fast as, it's kind of like if you start working out and you've been working out for 8 months, but you might not see anything. And
Yeah.
then one day, a year later, you look in the mirror and you're like, holy shit, I'm ripped.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really got some muscle definition and I've dropped 30 pounds. And if you don't, if you're not looking in the mirror and weighing yourself every day, you'll think, man, this is a waste of time. Why am I doing this? I don't have time for this.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day you catch yourself in a conversation or a situation and you're thinking, whoa, I'm actually much more proficient at this.
Yeah.
And that's what I've noticed now. Right now I'm seeing fruits of me and you starting this. It was like probably over a year and a half ago is when we got this and started recording
Yeah.
stuff.
Right.
So that for me is exciting because I'm thinking, cool, I'm just getting started.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing so much opportunity, so much that I could offer to other people, so much more I could do for myself, for my friends, for my family.
Where do you want to take it?
I just want this to keep kind of growing the way it is. It's
Naturally.
it's just like, just keep, taking care of
Are
it.
there any particular ideas that you like come to mind where you're like, hey, I'd like to do this or
But like I have my idea with my company, which I'm just going to do. I'm honestly not even going to, I have something about like saying I'm going to, like really publicly saying I'm going to do something. I'd rather do it and then sort of like,
mm-hmm.
then, but anyway, so yeah, like I have an idea with my company that will be doing this year. And then just dial everything up. It'd be great to have a camera for ourselves and each guest.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, like you said, some nicer mics. And our new mixer should be here in a week or
days,
so.
yeah.
We need something as a backup to
mm-hmm.
record. One thing I'll say, because I was thinking about this yesterday because we talked about doing this. I don't know if you've heard this, but people will probably say, like, I'm sure you've heard this. They say, oh, everything you want is on the other side of what you fear most.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's 100% true. And I don't think you can ever understand it until you do it. Like, I think until then, it's literally just a saying. It's set, like, it sounds catchy. It's a great Instagram post.
Mm-hmm.
You can make some cool font and put like a mystic background, and you could put somebody like Churchill at the bottom of it, and it might get you a few likes. But I don't think until you actually do that and feel that, and then you understand, oh, I get this. But I don't think that until you do that thing will you experience that.
And you think this podcast is in that kind of that
Yeah,
part of that?
yeah, because it's now I've been able to do so much more within my company and my personal life that I was holding myself back from.
Like what? Like what's related to the podcast?
Just going out to talk to clients and to make connections and network with people so that I can expand the company, and even for interviewing employees or having tough conversations with employees, which we were talking about today, and just asking people for help, being vulnerable and saying, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. Would you meet with me?
Mm-hmm.
I'll pay you for your time if you'd like. And I'll meet you wherever. And then it might not go anywhere. And then do it again with the next person, and then again with the next person. And eventually, after a while, you ask enough people and you talk to enough people and you start to find what you're looking for. And I don't think I don't know, because we've asked so many people to do this who haven't. And we've sat here in uncomfortable, like through uncomfortable parts of conversations, and you just, I don't know, you bear through it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's all of a sudden you look up one day and you're like, this isn't uncomfortable anymore. I actually feel like I could walk into this situation and I have a pretty good amount of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's noticeable, and I can actually now work towards what I want.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's just been all kinds of things that have been clicking and going together.
How do you think this has helped your personal life?
It just allowed me to make better connections with people.
Yeah.
Like emotionally. And my ability to listen has gotten a lot better. To not just say something and then wait and then be thinking of my response the whole time, and then making my response. I can kind of just sit there and just listen, and then wait and even not say anything, or just kind of, I don't know, let people talk, which I think makes, like I said, I think everybody wants to be heard, and then I think that becomes a two-way thing.
Is there any type of guest that you want to have on next year? Is there like or does it not matter to you? Is there a genre of guests? Is there anybody come to mind that you would like to reach out to or you'd like to have on?
No, I guess not necessarily. I think everyone's got, like, I don't know if there's people like I've admired something they've done or something they do, and maybe, but no one specifically comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm almost afraid, like I was going to say afraid to admit, but I'm just having this thought. I feel like ultimately the people that I would probably like admire would probably be like people that in some senses might not want to do it, or might not even be that interesting or impressive when I talk to them. But I think I've realized that there's so much of that in people that just seem like any everyday person that we've talked to. Just kind of saying that, like, looks are so deceiving.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, just don't judge things a book by its cover.
Yeah.
So that's why wouldn't say, like, this successful ABC XYZ. There's a few people that I look up to that we've had on, and it's been very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And they, like, them I look up to not because of what they've accomplished, but because who they are when I've been around them. And I don't think that is really advertisable. It's just something you sort of organically find if you're fortunate enough, or you find by getting to know somebody long enough because you somehow end up in the same environment.
Yeah. You've mentioned that your thoughts are like a reflection of your life. How much do you think the podcast is attributed to kind of organizing your thoughts?
Definitely a lot. I think I told you either the first one we did when you interviewed me or the second, and I listened back to it and I look at it from a third person perspective, just an observer. And then I notice patterns in the trajectory of my life, in the way I sound when I'm talking about certain eras of my life. And then when things changed, and when my tone changes, and then it's like very therapeutic to hear. And then I would kind of like sigh and reluctantly say when I was doing this, and then I'll say how excited I was when I was moving to Washington or Montana. And then I could just sort of see patterns, and then patterns of repeat of things I've done over and over that I didn't quite get it, and then I got it a little more the second time, but still didn't quite get it. So, and then I realized it's in some sense I'm in a version of that right now.
What do you mean by that?
Like, there's still some lesson I'm sure that I'm repeating that I haven't gotten yet.
You haven't learned.
Yeah. And I think you'll progress as you're ready to, and as you can handle, and as much as you want to, and as much as you can.
Yeah. So the podcast to help you kind of watch yourself.
It could really speed things up, in my opinion, because there's a lot of observation, and I think a lot of the observation can come from other people too. You can learn a lot from them, and then you don't have to try to do as many things the hard way. It's kind of like YouTube. We're so fortunate of the amount of information and people we can learn from.
So, something I've been paying attention to more, and I'm going to butcher this, but I'll get close. There's this conversation being had right now of like, there's no point in listening to podcasts and quote unquote learning things if you don't change your behavior. So in a sense, it's like if you don't actually take action and make changes, you're learning things, but you're not really learning them because you're not changing your behavior. So what behaviors have you changed in the last year?
See, I don't. I'll answer that question, but first, I'm going to say I don't know where what you essentially just said came from, but I actually completely disagree.
Okay.
And here's why I'll say that is because, like I just said before, this was years and years of slowly, talking to clients and then talking to you, becoming better friends with you, then saying, "Hey, we should do this." We did some recordings on our phone. Then we got this equipment and just shot the shit. Finally had a guest on, then had several guests on. Now we've been consistently publishing them. But I think that all started with some information I listened to. I think if you just listened to something and then went and implemented it, like the world would be obviously a very, very different place. And we know that 90 whatever percent of people hear information and don't do it. But I think it's a progression.
Okay.
I think I think you pick up bits and pieces here and there, and years after years, things start to accumulate, and that can be negative or positive. So I just think it's a never-ending progression. I do think that you can listen to too much, and it can get to where you're trying to take in too much information, and it's leaving you kind of paralyzed by the amount of information. But I don't think that there's any harm in taking in information, and if your intentions are to try to improve. So I think you're going to take in what you can, and if you realize it's too much, cut back, and if it's not, great. And if that's background noise while you're working, I don't think it's hurting anything.
Yeah, I hear you. I think you're right about that, and I think that's kind of what I think the progression matters, right? And the small steps matter, the small actions matter. So you're not going to just jump from 0 to 100. So I think that's true. So yeah, nothing I guess to disagree with there. However, you did take, you did. We have taken actions. They're just small ones.
Yeah,
and they took a year and a half to get to where we are now. And we slowly are changing our behavior. So I guess going back to the question, what behaviors have you changed in the last year?
I don't say like as much.
Okay.
I don't know what else.
You listen better.
Yeah, I listen better.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's a quote. It's probably Carl Jung, because what would I do besides quote him? But I really like it, and it's stuck with me for a while. Everything makes sense and is logical with enough information. And I've realized that as far as people and the way they act in situations. Because if you followed somebody's trail back to their beginning, watched their whole life, it actually makes complete sense why they're exactly where they are. So I have a lot more empathy for people. And then, I don't know, that I have. So the action I've probably changed is not being so quick to judgment with people.
Is there a certain podcast or person or topic that comes to mind where you were like, oh fuck, like wow, now I get it. Like I get that person better.
Yeah, like an early one was Mike.
Okay. Yep.
Because he just told his whole story, and I knew him from the gym. I trained with him, kind of like there's a bond with everyone you train with. But when you sit down with somebody and hear that and hear what he went through, it's how would I have known that otherwise? And then to know that, and then to now he's a friend. Like Mike's a good friend, and I love the guy. So yeah, it's just don't make an assumption about somebody because you don't have enough information. I guarantee. So I mean that was like number 7, I think. But even like Rick, we had so much fun with Rick. I learned so much about Rick that I had no idea.
Right.
And I learned stuff about my mother on the first one that I didn't know. And so it's you most likely never have enough information. And if you had all the information, it would things would make a lot more sense, and you probably would show up a lot different.
Yeah. And it's so funny because we don't even have all, but like, you have as much as you can. You have all the information about yourself and you still fucking judge yourself in a way that's like a lot of times that's not helpful, at least for me, right? It's like I judge myself and I'm like, I look back sometimes years later, I'm like, damn, I was really hard on myself about that. And that was unnecessary. And so like, how are you going to have more information? Like you have it all, but you don't, because you're like, you may not have all the information, but I guess what I'm getting at is like, you're going to have as much as you're going to have for yourself, and think about how much you're missing with other people.
Well, you just made me think it makes complete sense if kids or adults have some sort of trauma. Because if you think everything you've processed in the first 16 years, it's without enough information. Because you don't have enough information on the world and on people.
Yeah.
So you're processing all this stuff with a huge lack of information. So everything's interpreted improperly. And then you function in the next part of your life with everything sort of stored totally back-asswards. And all the assumptions you've made as a kid and a child because you don't know, because you just don't have the understanding, because you're too young. You don't have the emotional intelligence or maturity to process things. And then you go through the next part of your life with all this baggage that how would you not have it? You don't know. Like you take somebody out of context, you don't understand humor that way. Something goes wrong as a kid and you think it's your fault. And so it's like, you have to have the same empathy for yourself, essentially, that you should essentially have for anyone else as an adult.
Yeah, it makes me think about, I think the saying goes, the first part of your life, you idolize your parents. The second part of your life, you demonize your parents. And the last part of your life, you humanize your parents. And you kind of do that in a similar way with yourself. Meaning like you as your life progresses, you understand yourself differently. And you understand like where you were kind of you misled yourself.
Yeah, that's why I've always said, and I get it. I say I don't understand, but I do. I love kids. I think they're so much fun, and I have so much sympathy and empathy for them because what the hell do they know? They're trying to figure it out. And they're usually pretty damn funny in the process.
Yeah.
And when they're cranky, they're just trying to I watch it with my nephew, and he's between 3 and 4, and just watching him like get cranky and get tired. And I kind of laugh. I'm like, that's funny. That's exactly how I am right now when I get tired, except I just am an adult. So I'm like, oh man, I'm tired. And I start complaining about things, and I laugh because you see the similarity. that's why my tolerance is usually lower with an adult, because I'm thinking, you haven't, like, I don't know. Why haven't you figured any of this out? Why are you acting like a baby right now? You're 40 years old. You're a grown baby.
Right.
I don't know why some people figure that out and some don't, and it's whatever. I'm sure with enough information I'd understand, but I find it much easier to have empathy and sympathy and love for kids because they're just, they have so much potential, and they're just trying to figure it out. When somebody's like 50 something and they're just can't hold it together, you're like, man, I actually just feel bad. And at some point I just can't. It's too intolerable.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's what I've learned about the podcast.
I like it.
Yeah.
What feedback have you gotten from friends and family about it?
Oh, I remember like early feedback I got from a buddy who did the podcast. Decide if I want to out him or not. He was saying that I was very, very much too rigid and very like, hello, like, very, very serious. And I'm sure in some sense he was very much right. I was fairly nervous about doing it. And I don't know, you think, am I an idiot? What am I doing? I'm recording a conversation right now, sitting in Kyle's basement, and we just bought all this stuff and we're going to publish this. We're idiots. We're the biggest idiots alive. And it's going to be in public on display. Are we this so I was pretty uptight. But there's still something to be taken from that just relax. But that's, usually when you tell someone to relax is when they get more uptight. So the takeaway was just keep doing it and develop a level of comfort.
Yeah. What other, have you gotten other positive feedback from people?
Yeah, a lot. Somewhere I had notes from it because I realized, if I keep making notes of what people have said that are good, it's positive reinforcement to keep doing it. People, it's so cool you guys are doing this. This is so fun. This means so much. It was so cool to hear that about this person. It's weird. It's really weird when you hear when people reach out from some friends I grew up with. Man, that's so cool. I was listening. I just hope, I'm so happy for you, yada, yada. Man, I forget. I don't really think about it that much after we post it. I don't, there's no feed. I don't go on my phone and see how many people listen to it. I'll barely ever, the only time I'll notice is when I'm uploading the episodes. Oh, look, a lot of people listen to that one. And then I'll notice some comments, we're probably, our engagement with this is probably the worst engagement we've ever had, but we could work on that. But I think what's important is we're showing up and doing it. So, but a lot of good feedback. I think that was the only negative feedback I got. And then some people said, hey, the audio, could be better. And we've done our best. It's a lot to, have a relationship and a family and a job and stay in shape and pay your bills and then try to run a podcast for fun.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, I would imagine we do this to ourselves, but I think you can get compared to professionals, right? And we're not professionals. Did you hear that? You hear that?
Yeah. Do you think it? So do you notice I just brought my phone over here?
And now the buzzing started.
Yeah. It almost makes me wonder.
Let me see that thing. Why'd that happen?
God, that's so interesting. Let me see it again. Because we didn't do anything else, right?
Didn't do anything else.
I almost wonder,
you're watching this in real time, people.
Yeah, how interesting.
It's radio frequencies or cell frequencies or Wi-Fi or something.
I don't know what happens if I turn it off. Yeah, and that got pretty loud too, like pretty noticeable.
That is so weird.
Yeah, I don't know what else it could be.
Take your mic and put it towards you a little bit. Take yours back. It's yours.
Yeah, so we had like figured out to some extent that it has to do with this mic.
Yeah.
Anyway, what were we saying? We're working on the audio quality.
Yeah, I was going to say that some people think, people are automatically comparing us to professionals.
Yeah.
And they should, because that's who they listen to. They're listening to whatever podcast they listen to is most likely somebody who does it full time, that has help, and that's what they do, right? And so we're not professionals, right? Like we're not professionals at this. And so that was, there's been some critiques about that. And I guess I got over that, and I'm like, whatever, like this is good for us. It's good for us. And so I don't care if it's not the quality of X podcaster.
Yeah, I mean, everyone that's commented about how we could improve our podcast has had a pretty good podcast themselves, I will say.
What do you mean?
Because none of them have, like, it's coming from people that aren't doing it themselves.
That's right. Yeah, so, that's right. Yeah, true.
Anyway, yeah, no, it's, I mean, mostly just been good feedback. People are mostly excited. Most, like, number one from the guests, and then from people that know the guests.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but overall, just positive, good feedback and fun.
Yeah.
So funny.
What's that?
That's so funny.
Yeah, I don't know. What are you trying to do in 2025?
Keep growing Mountain Mule and make more connections with people, connect more people together.
Mm-hmm.
Buy a house, buy a shop, buy several houses, all in the same year.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Give people a great job. Give everyone that's in my industry with my company just an overall better experience and just a totally new experience within the industry and just within Montana that they otherwise wouldn't be able to have.
You want to elaborate on that?
No.
Okay.
Stay shreddy. You'll see. It'll be coming soon to a podcast carrier near you.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll wrap this up?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. Thank you.